There was a time when she used to speak with laughter in her eyes, when her heart bloomed like spring and her soul danced with the sun. But life has a way of testing the gentle ones the most. One by one, she watched the people she trusted turn their backs. One by one, her dreams began to fade into quiet shadows. And when the noise of betrayal and disappointment became too loud, she stopped speaking. Her friends called it distance. Her family called it mood swings. But her silence was not an escape. It was a sacred retreat. Because when a woman grows silent, it's not because she's weak. It's because her soul has begun a deeper conversation, one that no one else can hear in the stillness of her nights. When tears spoke more than words ever could, she started listening. Not to the world, but to herself. She realized how much noise she had been carrying, other people's opinions, their judgments, their chaos. And as she withdrew, her silence became her sanctuary. Each breath became a prayer, each tear a baptism. She was not breaking down. She was breaking open. There's something divine about those who go silent, because silence is where the soul starts to remember its own light. It's where you stop begging for understanding and start finding peace in your own reflection. Her silence was the space where healing whispered softly, "Let go, my dear. Let go of what tried to drown you." The world thought she was weak because she didn't fight back, but strength is not always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to rise every morning without bitterness in your heart. She chose peace over revenge, stillness over noise, grace over reaction. There came a night when she stood by her window, the moonlight falling on her like a blessing. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Something sacred moved through her silence, something beyond words. It was as if the universe itself leaned closer and whispered, "You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to awaken." That night she forgave everyone, not because they deserved it, but because her soul was tired of holding pain. She understood that forgiveness wasn't surrender, it was liberation. Her silence began to change her. Her energy softened, but her boundaries grew stronger. Her smile returned, not because life got easier, but because she was finally at peace with what had passed. She started to see beauty in small things, in morning sunlight through her window, in the rhythm of her heartbeat, in the sacred quiet between her thoughts. And slowly, the woman who once doubted her worth started to see herself as the divine creation she truly was. People noticed the change. They called her mysterious, distant, different. But she wasn't distant. She was aligned. She wasn't cold. She was calm. And she wasn't broken. She was blooming again, silently, because silence, when born from pain, becomes the language of strength. It becomes the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. The world only saw her stillness, but they never saw the wars she won in her heart. They never saw the nights she spent in prayer, or the battles she fought with her own shadows. The truth is, silence is not emptiness, it's presence. It's the divine space where the soul rewrites its story. And in that silence, she met herself again. Not the version the world shaped, but the one God created. Her silence taught her that endings are not punishments, they're preparations. That heartbreak is not destruction, it's purification. And that solitude is not loneliness, it's sacred rebirth. Now, when she walks into a room, she doesn't speak much, but her energy does. Her calm presence feels like healing to those who are lost, because those who've been through the fire don't need to prove their strength. They radiate it. She became the woman whose silence speaks of survival, whose eyes carry stories of storms and awakenings, and whose smile holds the grace of someone who has seen darkness and still chooses light. And maybe that's the real transformation, not becoming louder, but becoming deeper, not proving, but simply being. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was her soul remembering its divine power. It was the cocoon before the wings. It was her rebirth in disguise. because sometimes God hides his miracles inside moments of stillness. He doesn't shout through the chaos. He whispers in the silence. So if you ever see a woman who's gone quiet, don't assume she's broken. Maybe she's healing. Maybe she's listening to something sacred. Maybe her silence is not emptiness, but transformation in progress. Because silence is where the soul transforms, where pain becomes peace, and where endings become new beginnings. And she, the woman who once thought silence was weakness, now walks with the calm of someone who has met her soul. Her silence no longer hides her pain. It reveals her peace. In that sacred quiet, she found her truth, her power, her divine self. And that's the beauty of her silence. It wasn't weakness. It was her soul transforming.